A drifter who seems to know a lot of stuff for an average drifter has found a job at a zoo. His supervisor, Joe, is explaining things to him.
That about does it, David. Let's get out of here. Aren't too many creatures more unpredictable than a pregnant elephant?
I dealt with a pregnant human 3 times. I can't imagine the same thing with an elephant.
You ready for your next lesson?
Sure.
Well, that's good, because we're on our way to cleaning the reptile house.
Oh,
Well, now, life would be very dull if all God's creatures were warm and furry. You civilians are all alike.
well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I just go clean up the research lab and I'll let you live with the lizards?
I genuinely don't get why so many people are so cringy about reptiles and especially snakes. I think they're cool. Granted, it's a good idea to know which ones are safe to play with and which ones aren't, but the truth is there aren't that many venomous snakes in the United States. In a zoo, that might be a different story.
Why the research lab?
Well, I understand the doctor there is rather attractive.
Dr. Baxter? Don't get your hopes up, unless you're going disguised as an ape.
Joe was character actor Charles Lampkin. I couldn't find much information about him, and it makes me sad that he is one of the almost no black actors that I've gotten to profile. Like it or not, admit it or not, the 60s and 70s were a time of racist rebellion. The Civil Rights Act wasn't passed until 1964, so at this point it's only 13 years old. White people were still trying to adjust to this radical idea that people who look different are still people and equal. If you want to try and challenge me on that, bring it on and have fun. I lived it. I heard it almost daily. These inferior people think they should be just like us, blah, blah, blah. It happened, and real people experienced the wrong end of it. I have to give my dad credit. In his real estate business, he genuinely didn't see color. He served anybody who came through the door to the best of his ability. David, of course, has the same view, except in every aspect of life, not just business. And this is what I taught my kids from the day they could start to understand. People are people. Some are worth your time and some aren't. But you can't tell by looking. You have to get in there and mix it up with a person, get familiar with who they are, and then decide. You wouldn't buy a new car without test driving it, getting to know it. You wouldn't buy a house sight unseen just because it was the right color. People matter a lot more than cars or houses. Since he doesn't own either one, I think David gets that. When the people around you are all you have, it's not hard to develop a broader-minded attitude. Joe says feel free to try, but she's pretty single-minded.
She's devoted to her weirdo research. If she had spent less time studying animal aggression and more time doctoring, maybe that lion cub and orangutan wouldn't have died last month.
It's becoming a bit of a scandal, and she's not handling it very well. This time of day, she's usually down at the children's zoo. We've already established that the music playing is our Ooh, Pretty Lady theme.
They certainly seem to like you. Probably because they know that you like them. I saw your picture in Anthropology Monthly.
Yes.
It was quite an article. It certainly pointed out how controversial your work is.
Unfortunately.
She has some ideas about animal aggression that are off the beaten path, so to speak, and it has the potential to get her in big trouble. Still, she really wants to know if she's right, and David wants to know if her research can help him with the aggression hiding inside him.
Well, if you're that interested, why don't you just stop by the lab later on and I'll try to bring you up to date. I've got some charts and papers that explain it in basic terms.
Could your lab use cleaning right now?
You are curious, Mr.
Bradburn, David Bradburn.
Bradburn. It's too bad he insists on using names that start with B. If he'd been flexible enough to start one with W, he could have had a really cool name that's also a guitar maker. But maybe if he doesn't start it with a B, he can't remember what it was. He gets momentarily delayed by a case of SIS, and off they go.
Dr. Baxter, the Stanford Foundation called again. I think it's about how you're spending their grant money.
Oh, maybe you better get Dr. Malone to handle that. He's better with those people than I am.
Right.
And if Dr. Malone should call, would you tell him I'm in the back lab with Elliot and Mr.
Bradburn, David Bradburn.
Who's Elliot, I hear you ask?
You looking for me, Carl?
Just leaving you a reminder, we still haven't had that candlelight dinner.
No, we haven't.
How about tonight?
No, I can't tonight.
Okay. Don't forget, I can be a big help in getting that grant money for you.
And all it'll cost you is your soul and your self-respect. Guys like him make me think about breaking my lifelong nonviolent record. If you have to coerce and intimidate in order to get a date, I'm afraid you're the problem, dude. Maybe instead of coercing and intimidating, you should be asking yourself why you can't get a date the old-fashioned way. You know, by asking.
Doctor.
Elliot, come on now. You know you're not supposed to be out here.
That's Elliot. David is a little afraid of large animals with reputations for aggression. I can't imagine why.
What is it? What do you want? Want a snack? You want to throw me one of those apples over there?
Sure.
I don't really think he's hungry. He does this mostly for attention. Don't you, Elliot? All right, calm down. Woo! There you go. Okay, go back in, behave yourself. No more of this.
Elliot isn't a gorilla, he's a great big teddy bear.
Actually, I think he's a little jealous of our latest arrival.
Huh? Oh, well, now that is more, my size.
He just arrived this morning from South Africa.
She adores primates and chimps are special to her. But David is interested in something else.
You know, I'm particularly interested in your theory on anger in animals being induced biochemically rather than psychologically. Now, have you had much success with duplicating an amino acid combination in the DNA that you feel is responsible for violent behavior in specific animals?
You seem to have a fairly thorough knowledge of this subject. Well, if that's the area you're interested in, I suggest you read this. The collected articles of Dr. David Banner. You familiar with his work?
He's heard of the guy, yeah, read a little of his stuff, you know how it is. She wishes she could have met him. She found his work brilliant, but his death kept him from completing it. She's taken up the mantle and is trying to continue what he was doing.
Well, then you know that he can be terribly long-winded.
Yes, can.
It's always nice when you can laugh at yourself. He's dying to tell her, we can see it in his face. I think he's envisioning the two of them working together and finding a cure for him.
Is Elliot part of the experiment?
Right. Elliot thrives in captivity. He's adapted and he functions very well. But Elliot had a brother who had a violent temper and couldn't be tamed at all. Now, these two were raised under identical psychological conditions. So I had to find the difference between the two.
Did you?
Yes. I discovered that his brother had something missing in his transfer RNA.
Yes, yours some nucleotides.
He's close to giving himself away with comments like that, but he just says, I told you I'm very familiar with Banner's work.
Anyway, I isolated the amino acid that had caused the malfunction. And if I can duplicate that, then I might be able to find an antidote.
Yeah, something like a tranquilizer.
Exactly. A chemical that can finally control anger and violence in animals.
And humans. Have you developed AGD compounds?
Yeah, I've got the latest one right here.
I don't know what AGD is, but the bottle is labeled AGD4. She says she's taken it a good bit further than Banner was able to.
All right, how are the lab tests with the animals?
Well, I've only tried it out on the rodents. They go into a few minutes of minimal brain activity. It's like a deep sleep. And then...
Yes?
And then they fly into an uncontrollable rage. It's really terrifying to see. It's almost as if they turn into a whole different creature.
You don't say. If you expose them to gamma rays, do they turn green? She's hit a block. She doesn't know where to go from here. If only Dr. Banner were alive, he could probably tell her. But maybe a poop shoveler named Bradburn can help.
Have you tried taking the AGD a generation further? With radiation?
It's highly speculative, very advanced idea.
No, I thought that you might try radiation. It may be the breakthrough that you're looking for. And if you find that, well, the anti-aggression drug may be a little easier to create.
Before they can proceed with that idea, the intercom buzzes. It's always something.
Yeah. Dr. Malone's on his way. Guess what? He's arranged a stay of execution for Androcles. Fantastic.
Don't tell me. Androcles, the lion.
Right. Got him from a circus. Brutalized beyond belief. He was starved, beaten, and finally brought to us after he turned on his trainer.
He's a known killer, and she wants to use him for her experiment. Makes sense to me, but there are those for whom the first solution is always kill it.
Well, how are you today, Claudia?
Fantastic.
Rita told you about Androcles. I wanted to tell you myself.
She was just too excited to wait. Oh, David, this is Dr. Malone, my boss. And the reason I'm not waiting tables somewhere.
We've seen Dabbs Greer many times, and I've talked about him before. He makes some offhand jokes about Dr. Baxter being pretty, but he acts more like a doting grandfather than either a boss or a Carl type. We're learning one other thing about him.
This is David Bradburn. We were just discussing my experiments.
Hello.
You working with Joe?
Yes, I am.
Well, now, I'll admit that Dr. Baxter's experiments are extremely attractive. But, you know, if we had too many people like you around here, we never would get the place cleaned up, would we?
No, sir, I guess you wouldn't. Dr. Baxter, thank you very
Claudia.
much. Claudia. Doctor.
He's a snob. If he had any idea who he's really talking to, he'd be on his knees begging forgiveness. But since Mr. Bradburn is just a grunt, it's obvious there's no place for him in these halls of intellectualism.
When did you start giving seminars for the hired help?
Well, I'm just the hired help, too, you know.
Nice. A subtle way of saying you're being a snob. You know his name and his uniform. Beyond that, you know nothing about him. So, down, boy.
Is the Stanford Foundation going to renew my grant?
Since your magazine article, it's shaky, but... Well, Claudia, there's one other thing. The board wants a hearing on the death of the lion cub and the orangutan. Now, I know they died from a simple viral infection, but... Well, it's very informal. It's strictly routine.
See if I'm negligent.
He asks about the new chimp, and she says, clean bill of health. No illnesses, no viruses, nothing.
Joe, if you're looking for me at lunchtime, I will be up in the research lab.
That makes the 4th day straight.
Well, I'm learning a lot from Dr. Baxter.
Mm-hmm.
Something wrong?
No, I can manage.
That's the new chimp that was brought in, wasn't it? What's the matter with it?
It's dead.
David has a problem with that.
Sure, I think you're mistaken.
What are you doing?
Oh, Dr. Malone, I don't think that this animal is dead, but rather in a comatose state. I really think we could save its life.
No, I'm afraid it's too late. He's gone.
Malone is getting defensive, and David is wondering why. He insists the chimp is dead and tells Carl to take it to pathology. David is still saying that's the alivest dead chimp he ever saw.
Doctor, I just think if we re-examine...
Mr. Bradburn, is it?
Yes.
I appreciate your concern for the animals, but I'm a doctor, and diagnosing them is my responsibility. Need I remind you what yours is?
Fine, grab a stethoscope and let's see if its heart is still beating. But Dr. Malone is in full snob mode, and as I said, defensive. His behavior isn't suspicious at all now, is it? Still, he's snobbish enough to believe a simple shovel jockey won't give him any trouble.
Is this the latest delivery?
They're at the bottom.
$1 million bag of popcorn. Amusing.
Yes, it's one of those new hard-sided round bags.
I was looking at your next autopsy.
It's too risky to have another animal die that soon.
That's not my problem. We have an agreement.
Whoever this guy is, he's got Carl and Malone working for him to sabotage Dr. Baxter's work. As usual, we'll have to wait to find out what his endgame is.
I'm afraid that new janitor's suspicious.
He doesn't know anything.
He knows the monkey wasn't dead.
He's not going to interfere anymore.
Let's be certain.
Well, I can't just fire him. He might get more suspicious and go to the board. I don't want anybody hurt. I'll think of something.
Your handler wasn't thinking of firing him, Malone. There's no way you can't know that. He doesn't have the stomach for what he actually means. Carl says, for a little more money, I'll take care of it.
All right. I'll leave it up to you to scare him off. Be creative.
I suppose a keeper dying so soon after all those animals would raise a lot of suspicion. David couldn't hear what was said, but he saw the whole thing. It's obvious that Malone is dirty. The question is how to tell Claudia.
All right, it's been 30 minutes since we injected the hybrid DNA strand into his spinal fluid.
Already? Okay. Show him the pictures.
Pictures of various primates elicit no response. The EEG needles are steady.
Slight fluctuation. But a lion would normally kick that needle right off the graph, wouldn't it?
Right. Maybe we are getting closer to isolating the anti-anger compound.
Yeah.
A tiger picture gets the same minimal response. But the last picture is of a pair of chimps just like the one she lost. That's bringing her down.
Claudia, did you perform the autopsy?
No, Dr. Malone said that the board wanted him to do it personally.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I should tell you. When Carl and Malone took the monkey out of that cage, it wasn't dead.
It wasn't dead. Why didn't they try to save it?
I don't know.
She says, I saw the report. The monkey died of the same virus as the other two animals.
I still can't believe that I could miss diagnosing the same viral infection 3 times.
Neither can I.
The difference is she thinks it's because she didn't do her job right. He thinks it's because someone else is doing a job on her.
Hey. When was the last time you ate, huh?
Oh, I don't know. Breakfast.
Hmm?
Yesterday.
Tell you what. If you help me put Elliot back into his little home, I'll buy you a sumptuous meal.
He can afford it on a janitor's salary because he has nothing else to spend his money on. And unlike Carl, she trusts David.
Sumptuous. Well, filling.
How about thoughtful?
How about mustard?
Sure, why not? Very artistic. Certainly a Renaissance man here.
No.
What are you, David?
I wish he'd answer something like, I'm a bipedal hominid, but he's just keeping quiet.
Okay. Where do you live?
Well, I have a room down on Fulton Street.
Just a room?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not so curious. I understand you live in your lab.
So far, he doesn't look too scared, Carl.
Malone. What do you know about him?
A lot more than I know about you. Where you from?
Most recently, New York City. Speaking of which, my favorite paper.
The National Register?
Yeah.
It's too bad he can't explain that, too. But he doesn't want to talk about him.
You know what? I think you should move past your insecurities.
I saw your lab diary. You made several significant discoveries before Dr. Banner. Why didn't you publish them first?
Oh, Dr. Malone didn't think they were very important. He wanted to avoid the controversy.
It always comes back to Dr. Malone. David can see that this guy is manipulating things for his own ends. She can't yet. He's going to have to bring her along slowly. Remember how she said she owes her job to Malone? That kind of loyalty is going to be hard to penetrate, but he has to find a way.
Okay, Elliot. Come on now, boy.
Why does he have access to her lab? She's introducing David to Androcles, and she says, "I'd like you to become my lab assistant." Carl has finished what he was doing. He smashes a beaker in Elliot's cage and takes off. He shot the gorilla up with the anti-aggression stuff, then threw something at him. I don't get it.
Radburn, Dr. Malone wants you to help me with something.
Oh, it's okay. I've got to go back and check on the new zebra anyway. I'll see you later.
Hop in, I'll give you a lift. It's Elliot.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he just made a mess.
Oh, my God. Carl, where'd all the glass come from?
What's the difference? Just clean it up. I'm sorry. Knocked it shut. I'll get the key.
Wait a minute, Carl. Hey, Carl, there's a key right there in the cabinet. Hey, Carl!
If David hasn't figured out what's happening yet, he isn't sciencing this very well. Here, I'll science it for him. We observe that Carl has locked him in a cage with a sleeping gorilla that shows evidence of some kind of aggression. Even though there's a key right there, Carl left the room without a word. From this evidence, we conclude that David Bradburn is in big trouble. Claudia isn't coming anytime soon. She was checking on the new zebra that foreign guy said is supposed to die next.
Elliot! Easy, Elliot. Easy, 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 Elliot. Carl! Elliot, easy. Carl! Somebody help me! Carl! Elliot, Elliot.
It's not hard to guess what happens next.
Oh, my God.
He spotted that bottle of AGD4, and now he knows why Elliot is acting like this. All he has to do is remember that when he changes back later. You know, one of the funniest things about this? People have been making gorilla suits for centuries, and in all that time, they really haven't gotten any more convincing. Elliot is played by character actor George Barrows. We've seen him before in F Troop, Batman, My Mother the Car, and I forget what else. I wonder if he had fun knocking Bill Bixby around. Me, I think I'd be more concerned about how hot it's going to get inside that suit. But that's just me. Ooh, I felt that one. This is a great fight, monster against monster. Although at times it feels a bit like a game of I Can Top That. Like that. A few more punches and Elliot has had enough. He heads back into his cage.
Oh, my God.
Her lab is a shambles, and Elliot isn't telling what he knows, but she's more interested in the green guy.
All right, clear the zoo as quickly as possible. But I don't want to panic.
Did anyone actually see this thing?
Yeah, I did.
What did it look like? Was it really green?
And enormous. The musculature was extremely developed, but the skull structure was very primitive. It was violently angry.
And yet he didn't harm her or anybody else. So it might be in order to try and find out what he was so angry at. In the first movie, we did the Frankensteinish thing meeting with a little girl. That one didn't go so well. Let's try again.
Here, Dumbo. Don't you want a peanut? Dumbo, have a peanut. Dumbo. Hi. Do you live here too? Have some more. Don't you have a cage or anything?
It's a little one-sided, but they're having a pleasant conversation. To her, he's just another new friend, or maybe one of the exhibits. Either way, she likes him. Among other things, he eats peanuts funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, the zoo is closing early today. Please proceed to the nearest exit at once.
Where are you going? Don't go away. It's just my mommy. Bye-bye.
Art Linkletter used to say that kids say the darndest things. I think part of the reason they do is because there are moments like this when they're a lot more perceptive than the adults are. She sees a big green guy and offers him peanuts. Mom sees a big green guy and loses her marbles. Guess who had a better insight into what he is? He has no idea what's going on or why this lady is acting hysterical, but he's not going to stay around to find out if it involves him.
We'll also be seeing the ever adorable kangaroo.
And by the way, this is one of those rare North American green kangaroos. Once again, he isn't hurting anybody. Just the opposite, he's trying to get away from people. They are not friendly creatures. By nightfall, the police are reporting that they can't find this thing. Why shouldn't it be a lap cat for him? Neither baby nor mother seems to mind. But he's changing back, and David usually doesn't remember what he did as the Hulk. So this should be interesting. Yeah, now Mama's asking some questions. That baby is adorable and cuddly, and I think I'd put it down and move away from it very carefully. That's what David intends to do. And now let's take a moment to sympathize with actors who have to work with animals. I'm pretty sure it wasn't supposed to do that, but this kitten has his own ideas about the script, and he has the authority to overrule the director. David slips out without incident.
I hope I've convinced the board of directors that that creature might be connected with Claudia's experiments.
Yeah. With their attention focused on her, it'll make it a lot easier for us to finish our business, collect the money, and disappear.
They're anxious to hear her version, but I want to make sure they don't get it.
Yes, they're officially blaming her for the Hulk. Since she's only worked on mice and one gorilla that's accounted for, I want to hear him explain how.
Take a few days off. What for?
Well, it's going to take a couple of days just to get this place back in working order, right, Carl?
Yeah, and with this new animal getting sick this soon after arriving.
What?
One of the zebras is showing the same symptoms of that virus.
It was fine when I examined them yesterday. I want to examine that zebra myself right now.
Claudia, now believe me, I hate to do this, but as your supervisor, you leave me no choice. I'm going to have to suspend you from your duties.
Ask him why he's so afraid to let you see the zebra. But she lacks self-confidence, as we saw. He starts saying she's become an embarrassment to the place and the hearings probably won't go well. She's devastated, which is what he was going for.
Claudia, what are you doing?
Leaving.
When you're on the verge of isolating the anti-aggression compound.
On the verge of never working again. Dr. Malone suspended me.
Why?
Oh, what difference does it make? Look at this place. When that creature tore through here, he destroyed 6 months' worth of research.
Trust me, it'll make a lot of difference. Elliot is not himself, and David would like to know why.
He was in a coma. He's stuporous now. He's got some abrasions, no concussion. It doesn't seem to be from the creature's attack. I'm having him moved to the infirmary later on.
Did you take blood samples?
Of course I did.
Did you check for AGD4?
Now, why would I do that?
Look. Half empty.
It's not hard to figure out that whoever used it pumped it all into Elliot.
Somebody did inject Elliot with AGD4. Why? Yes.
Here's a reporter to see you, Dr. Baxter, Mr. McGee.
Rita, tell him I'm busy. I can't be disturbed.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Baxter. He got by me. He's on his way down the hall.
That sounds like Jack. He's not real big on getting permission or respecting personal space.
David, could you get rid of him for me?
Claudia.
I'm sorry. I just can't handle these things. I fall apart.
That's mild compared to what will happen if Jack sees him. Too bad he can't tell her that.
Please?
Claudia, you can't keep running from people your entire life.
I know.
But then handle it.
He keeps his secret, and she discovers inner strength. Win-win.
I'm sorry. This area is restricted to authorized personnel.
Well, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about that creature that was here. Couldn't we talk inside your lab?
I really don't have the time right now.
Well, I think, Doctor, maybe you ought to make the time. I understand the one thing you don't need is a little more bad publicity.
From your paper? I doubt she has anything to worry about, and she doesn't take kindly to threats.
Mr. McGee, the main thing that
I just hope that you're not going to regard this thing as another species to be studied. It's killed 2 people, you know. It isn't.
Are you satisfied? Or would you like to examine Elliot a little closer?
He makes a few more threats and says, I'll be back tomorrow.
Rita, make sure Mr. McGee finds his way out.
Yes, Doctor. And I was just leaving for the night. I would like to walk out to the parking lot with him. That creature may still be around.
I'm not sure Mr. McGee is any less dangerous. Good night, Rita.
And by the way, if he comes back tomorrow, call the police and have him arrested for trespassing. It's about time his rudeness brought some consequences down on his head.
You handled him a lot better than I would have.
Thanks. Why would someone inject Elliot with AGD4?
To kill me? Or at least scare me.
What?
Carl locked me in the cage with Elliot.
He says he was knocked unconscious and doesn't remember how he got out unless the creature broke the door or something.
Why would Carl want to do that?
Because I knew the chimp wasn't dead.
Oh, come on. That's not worth killing somebody over.
How do we know that? What is this all about? I think it has something to do with the chimp.
And maybe the lion cub and the orangutan that died?
Possibly.
Don't forget the zebra. David says maybe they weren't dead. Are they exotic or special or anything like that?
No, they were typical South African species.
They were all typical South African species?
Right. What?
I don't know. Do you have a paper, today's paper, by any chance?
No, but she has that copy of the National Register that Jack gave her. It'll have to do.
What?
Johannesburg police are still baffled by last month's theft of $7.5 million worth of uncut diamonds. The diamonds are believed to have already been smuggled out of South Africa, but there are no leads as to how this was accomplished.
Oh, my God, and the animals.
Possibly.
Should we call the police?
No. That won't be necessary.
I was pretty sure we heard the door, but they were a little focused.
750,000, as I promised.
Balance?
After your final delivery.
Come on, get over there.
You were supposed to handle the situation more subtly, Carl.
I had no choice. She was calling the police.
Jagger, I don't want to get involved, please.
Oh, I'd love to hear what you think you are right now, if not involved, Doctor. It's a little late to get squeamish.
You take care of it, Carl, and I'll be back with your final payment after the zebra's autopsy.
No problem.
Carl, this has already gone too far.
We can tie him up.
Malone's spine is made of oatmeal, so he does what Carl tells him.
And give him a shot of this.
What for?
If 20 cc's put that gorilla into a coma, almost half a bottle's gonna do wonders for him.
Oh, my God, Carl.
It's all very simple. You experiment on a man, and he dies from an overdose of your aggression drug.
Nobody would ever believe that Claudia would be capable of doing that.
The board of directors already does.
I wonder how they came to that conclusion. And with so many animals catching the same thing, why aren't a few of them investigating for themselves?
You're gonna make a house call on Androcles. I'll be right back, Malone. Get it done.
Ow!
You can shout all you want. I sent the security to the other side of the park to look for that creature.
For someone who doesn't want to get involved, Malone is as pliant as a piece of paper. He starts drawing up the drug.
Malone, listen to me. The only crime that you've committed so far has been smuggling. If you give me an overdose of that drug, it'll be murder. Malone! Malone, think about what you're doing! You know what that lion will do to Claudia? It'll tear her apart! Now you can't let that happen!
Malone is acting like a zombie. All he needs to do is squirt that stuff out somewhere and have David played dead. But as I said, oatmeal. It's plain to see that Carl is the mastermind, and he's leading Malone around by his nose hairs.
Malone! Malone, stop! For God's sake! Don't do it! Malone!
Malone is down for the count, and he has no idea what hit him. It's a good thing his head is made of the same kind of mush as his backbone. It's hard to run with your hands behind your back like that. Try it sometime and see how your balance does. Might want to wear a catcher's mask in case you fall on your face, though.
Get my foot! Help!
Come on, get over there.
Somebody help me!
Help is coming, though it's not exactly what she expected. Carl really thought he was going to win that one. We like our villains shaken, not stirred. Androcles' moat is nearby, may as well make use of it.
Wait!
With those sheer sides, he's not going to get out without help. Call it a citizen's arrest. She's slowly figuring out what that little girl knew by instinct. This guy's harmless, unless you do something mean to him or someone he cares about. I do wonder why he didn't untie her hands, but maybe it's because she didn't ask. It's also possible he didn't realize she can't drive that thing sitting on the hood. Or maybe he just ran out of time. Here come the sirens, and there goes the Hulk.
Get that man out of the moat.
Roger, 210. Apprehend creature and hold for local authorities. Creature is to be considered
Dr. Baxter, what happened? Are you all right?
She's better than all right. She's exonerated. She'll be able to put the real monsters away for a very long time. The board of directors is going to have an egg the size of a Buick on their faces, and I have a feeling we're looking at the new head of the research department.
Tell the foundation I can meet with the money people any day next week. I'm absolutely sure. Yeah, I know. It feels good, too. Thank you. Goodbye.
I just thought I'd move a few things, Dr. Baxter. You ready to move into Malone's office? His stuff's all cleared out.
Told you.
Well, I guess so.
Is this yours, too?
No, Joe, that's mine.
You moving on?
I'm afraid so, yeah.
Well, a person could give 2 weeks' notice.
I know.
Joe also tells her that Jack McGee says he'll be sticking around for a while. That's the best reason in the world for David to move on. If Jack is here, he's not wherever David went. That's a good situation.
You know, David, with this new job, I'm not going to have much time to devote to the anti-aggression research.
I know that now.
And it's very important to you for some reason. Why don't you stay? Continue it for me.
No, Claudia, I can't. Not now.
Oh, come on, David. I don't even know what the next step should be.
Tell you what, get rid of McGee and we can talk about it. That guy's like a persistent rash. He just won't go away.
Help me figure it out.
I've got to go. Really?
Well, could you at least sign my cast for me?
Oh, with pleasure.
It was several days before anyone noticed that he signed it, The Incredible Hulk.
Check gamma ray effect on DNA overlap.
He did it again. He left someone better than he found them. She was a bit of a marshmallow until he convinced her that she has something to say. Breaking open that smuggling operation has put her on the map, and now she has the confidence to go forward on her own. She developed an intelligence-enhancing compound and made Elliot her assistant. A few weeks later, David came back to visit and was dismayed to see how quickly he'd been replaced, and by whom. Develop a broader-minded, oh man, I had it! One with W, don't bite yourself. Maybe if he read the line for him to sabotage Dr. Baxter. Sabotage Dr. Baxter. Baxter, I can say that. Sabotage Dr. Baxter's work. Man, why is that giving me so much trouble? But at times I feel...